Welcome to the deep dive. I'm really thrilled to have you joining us today because we are looking at, well, it's an ocean rivalry that completely overturns our entire understanding of marine apex predators.
It really does. It's a massive paradigm shift.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
If you ask anyone you know to picture the ultimate terrifying boss of the ocean, the image that instantly comes to mind is obviously the great white shark.
Oh, absolutely. The star of all our nightmares.
Exactly. It's the undisputed king of the food chain, or at least that is what we've believed for decades. But recent evidence paints a remarkably different picture. The great white is not at the top of the pyramid anymore.
Not even close.
Yeah, they're actually actively fleeing from the ocean's actual heavyweights, killer whales, or orcas.
It's fascinating. And to get to the bottom of how and why this is happening, we have pulled together a really comprehensive stack of sources for you.
We've got quite the stack today.
We do. We're pulling from peer-reviewed marine biology journals, analyzing recent drone footage, reviewing some breaking news reports out of South Africa and Australia.
And that raw interview too, right?
Yes, exactly. A raw 1997 interview from a boat captain who documented this behavior long before the scientific community fully recognized it.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out the mechanics behind this. We want to know how orcas are hunting the world's most feared sharks with such surgical precision. And what this epic power struggle means for the broader ocean ecosystem.
Because what's really important here is that we aren't just looking at some monster movie playing out in the ocean.
Right.
This is a masterclass in animal intelligence and cultural evolution. It also serves as a stark lesson in the delicate balance of marine food webs.
Totally. So to really grasp the scale of this clash, I think we need to do a tale of the tape.
Let's do it.
Let's look at the physical matchup. If you're a great white shark, what are you bringing to the fight? So a typical adult great white measures about 4 to 5.5 meters long.
Massive.
Yeah, and weighing up to 1,800 kilograms. They are built for solitary, stealthy ambush attacks, hitting burst speeds of around 40 kilometers per hour.
Which is incredibly fast for an animal that size.
It is. And then there's the bite force, 18,000 newtons. For some context, a human bites down with about 700 newtons.
Wow.
So 18,000 is just a staggering amount of power.
Those statistics are formidable, but they really pale in comparison to the orca.
Right, let's hear the orca stats.
An adult killer whale ranges from 5 to 8 meters long, and some males push nearly 10 meters.
10 meters.
Yeah. And the mass difference is where it truly diverges. An orca weighs anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 kilograms.
That's not even a fair fight.
It's not. They're significantly faster, too capable of reaching 56 kilometers per hour. And as for bite force, an orca brings an astonishing 84,500 newtons.
That's insane.
Using your analogy earlier, if a great white's bite is like dropping a bowling ball on something, the orca's bite is like dropping a solid iron anvil.
So the physical mismatch is immense. One of our sources used an analogy that really crystallized it for me. Comparing the sheer mass and hunting styles. It's like a grizzly bear taking on a pack of wolves.
But the roles are completely reversed.
Exactly. The orca is the grizzly in this scenario, but it hunts with the coordination of a wolf pack.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer bulk is only a secondary advantage. The orca's primary weapon is its cognition.
Its brain.
Right. Great whites are perfectly evolved for their ecological niche, but they rely heavily on solitary instinct. Orcas possess advanced problem-solving skills, they use sophisticated echolocation, and they hunt in highly coordinated matrilineal pods.
They don't just react to their environment, they strategize.
Exactly.
And that strategy is terrifyingly clear when you look at the data coming out of South Africa.
Yeah.
You look at the recent timeline, there's a specific pair of male orcas you need to know about. Researchers name them Port and Starboard.
Right, the famous duo.
Yeah, and they're super easy to identify because their dorsal fins are collapsed. Port's bends to the left and Starboard's bends to the right. Around 2015, they began showing up in Gansbaai, which is a location globally renowned as the great white shark capital of the world.
The arrival of Port and Starboard coincided with a pretty grim phenomenon. By 2017, massive great white carcasses began washing ashore on South African beaches.
Just washing up dead.
Yes. One of the victims was a well-known 4.9-meter female that researchers had actually been tracking named Khaleesi.
I saw the photos of that in sources.
And the condition of these carcasses was baffling to the initial response teams. The pattern was almost forensic.
I read the descriptions of those carcasses, and it is just bizarre. The researchers found a neat tear right between the shark's pectoral fins, and the liver was entirely missing.
Just the liver.
Just the liver. The rest of the massive body was completely untouched. It's as if a surgeon came in, removed a single organ, and left. But for years, scientists only had the aftermath right. They knew Port and Starboard were around, but they hadn't actually caught them in the act.
Right. That gap in the research finally closed in June 2023 in Mossel Day. Observers on a nearby vessel, along with researchers, witnessed Starboard actively hunting a 2.5-meter juvenile great white.
And this is the part that blows my mind.
The striking detail of this observation was that Starboard executed the hunt completely alone, while Port remained about 100 yards away.
Just watching.
Just hanging back. Within 2 minutes, Starboard gripped the shark, tore open the pectoral fin, and extracted the liver.
Here's where it gets really visceral. The people on the boat actually watched Starboard swim past with a bloody, peach-colored piece of shark liver in his mouth.
Incredible.
The scientists noted that the surface of the water immediately slicked over with oil, and the air was filled with this distinct, heavy smell of shark liver.
It is a very intense scene.
It is. But it raises a huge question. With 84,000 newtons of bite force, why be so delicate? Why leave behind tons of perfectly good meat and just take the liver?
The answer lies in caloric efficiency. Unlike most fish, sharks do not have a swim bladder to keep them buoyant.
Right.
Instead, they rely on a massive oil-filled liver. A great white's liver can make up to 1/3 of its entire body weight.
A third of its weight.
Yes, it is saturated with a highly buoyant compound called scoline and dense lipids. For an orca, consuming that liver is like eating the ultimate hyper-concentrated energy bar.
The ultimate energy bar. I like that.
Oh.
But the delicate nature of the extraction points to a fascinating biological constraint, too.
The sandpaper problem.
Yes, the sandpaper problem. When I was going through the sources, this detail stood out as completely wild to me.
You might assume an orca could just tear a shark to pieces, but they actually have to be incredibly careful. Shark skin isn't made of standard fish scale.
Right, it's different.
It is covered in dermal denticles, which are microscopic tooth-like structures that interlock like armor. If you brush against it the wrong way, it acts like heavy grit sandpaper.
So if an orca were to repeatedly bite and thrash against a shark's body, those dermal denticles would rapidly wear the orca's teeth down to the gums.
Exactly. The sources noted that older orcas have actually washed up dead with their teeth worn into useless flat pegs just from a lifetime of eating sharks.
Just from the friction of the skin.
Yes. So the surgical extraction of the liver through a single tear is a learned behavioral adaptation. They have figured out how to secure a massive calorie payload while protecting their teeth from irreversible damage.
But how do you safely perform that kind of surgery on a live great white? These are 15-foot predators with mouths full of serrated teeth.
They exploit a biological loophole in the shark's nervous system. It is a phenomenon called tonic immobility.
Tonic immobility. Let's explain that for everyone.
Orcas will cooperatively ram the shark, or in Starboard's solo case, strike it with incredible speed to physically flip the shark upside down. When a shark is turned on its back, it enters a natural trance-like state of paralysis.
They literally flip the shark belly up and the shark just freezes.
It's completely incapacitated.
It's a paralysis trick. And what really strikes me is that this isn't isolated to just 2 rogue orcas in South Africa. The sources show this surgical hunting technique is spreading globally.
We are observing the social transmission of highly complex behavior across vast geographical distances. It is a true testament to the adaptability of orca culture.
Look at the global reports. In October 2023, a 4.7-meter great white washed up in Victoria, Australia. It had the exact same MO. Missing organs.
And researchers actually took a swab from a massive 50-centimeter wound on the shark, right?
Yeah, they did. And it tested positive for killer whale DNA. That was the first genetic proof of this behavior in Australian waters.
Fascinating.
And then in Mexico, drone footage from 2022 and 2024 captured a group known as Moctezuma's Pod in the Gulf of California. They were filmed using the exact same flipping technique to extract livers from young great whites and even from massive whale sharks.
The drone footage from Mexico is critical because it forces us to ask how these pods operate and share information.
They have to be communicating this somehow.
They are. Orcas have distinct regional dialects and highly specialized diets. Some pods eat exclusively fish, others hunt marine mammals, and some have clearly specialized in sharks. They do not rely purely on instinct. They actively teach these sophisticated methods to the next generation.
And that pedagogy is highlighted in a piece of 2025 BBC wildlife footage mentioned in our stack. It shows a mother orca named Jenny.
That footage is remarkable.
She delicately pulls a seal off a piece of ice, but she doesn't eat it. Instead, she explicitly uses it as a prop to teach her calves how to hunt, demonstrating the technique step by step.
If they do that with seals, you can easily picture older orcas teaching the younger ones exactly where to strike a great white to flip it and extract the liver.
It just demonstrates an extraordinary level of cognition. And the historical records suggest this specialized hunting isn't an entirely new phenomenon, it's just newly documented by modern technology.
The 1997 interview you mentioned earlier is a perfect example of this.
Yes, I wanted to ask you to unpack that source. It is raw audio from a boat captain named Mick out of the Farallon Islands off the coast of California. It sounds almost like an old mariner's tale.
Captain Mick's account is a foundational piece of observational data. He received a radio call about 2 transient orcas in the area. A great white had surfaced to scavenge a seal that the orcas had just killed.
Bold move by the shark.
Very. Mick describes watching the larger of the 2 orcas change its trajectory, making a beeline straight for the shark. There was a massive splash and then silence.
The way he describes the aftermath is what really stuck with me.
He reported that the orca swam right up to his tour boat with the dead 12-foot great white in its mouth.
Just carrying it.
Yes. For 20 minutes, the orca paraded the carcass around the boat. It would drop the shark, pick it back up, and present it to the humans watching.
Mick compared it to a house cat bringing a dead mouse to its owner.
While we must be careful not to overly anthropomorphize the behavior, it clearly suggests a level of dominance display or social signaling.
So what does this all mean for the oceans? Because when the apex predator becomes the prey, the resulting ecology gets incredibly messy.
Very messy. The psychological impact on the great whites is immediate and severe. Tagging data reveals a dramatic flight response.
You just run for it.
The moment orcas arrive in a bay, the great whites evacuate. In Gansbaai, researchers monitored 14 tagged sharks. When the orcas appeared, all 14 sharks immediately left the area.
And they didn't just hide for a few days either. The sources note they entirely abandoned their prime hunting grounds for months. A world-famous shark cage diving industry in the area saw their sightings drop to absolute zero.
This triggers what ecologists call a trophic cascade.
Let's explain that trophic cascade concept for everyone listening.
When you remove a top predator from an ecosystem, the effects ripple down through every subsequent layer of the food web. With the great whites fleeing Gansbaai, a smaller predator species called the bronze whaler shark moved into the territory.
It is essentially nature's middle management stepping up when the CEO leaves the building.
That's a great way to put it. Ecologists call this mesopredator release.
But the bronze whalers didn't get to run things for long.
The bronze whalers enjoyed a brief moment at the top, but the orcas quickly proved they were perfectly happy to pivot their menu. They simply started hunting the bronze whalers instead.
So the orcas just started eating the middle management too.
Exactly. But the cascade doesn't stop with the sharks. The absence of the great whites profoundly altered the behavior of their primary prey, the Cape fur seals.
Because the seals suddenly didn't have to constantly look over their shoulders for a 15-foot shark.
Without that constant predatory pressure, the seal population experienced a rapid boom. They became bolder, altering their foraging patterns, and began preying heavily on critically endangered African penguins.
That is just wild, because 2 orcas developed a taste for shark liver. An entirely different endangered species of penguin is suddenly being decimated by overconfident seals.
It is a crazy chain reaction, and the chain reaction goes even deeper.
What happened next?
In mid-2024, a severe rabies outbreak tore through that booming seal population in the Western Cape.
Oh, wow.
This is where the concept of an ecosystem's immune system becomes relevant. In a balanced environment, top predators act as a natural regulating force.
So the sharks would have normally eaten the 6 seals.
Exactly. If the great whites had still been patrolling those waters, they likely would have naturally culled the 6 slower-moving seals early on. By removing the sick individuals, the sharks could have potentially mitigated the spread of the rabies outbreak.
But without them, the virus had a massive, dense population to spread through.
Precisely. It perfectly illustrates how incredibly fragile these environments are. You pull one thread out of the food web, and the entire system alters completely.
But while the cinematic battle between orcas and sharks is fascinating, the sources make sure to contextualize this within our current reality. The orcas are terrifying to the sharks, but human activity remains the apex threat.
The data is unambiguous on that point. Port and Starboard are reshaping local coastlines, but the greatest existential threat to great white populations globally is human impact.
Things like commercial overfishing.
Yes, commercial overfishing severely depletes their natural food sources. Additionally, lethal mitigation measures like shark nets and drumlines cause immense unsustainable mortality rates.
Both the great white and the orca are just trying to navigate an ocean that is rapidly changing.
Climate change is shifting water temperatures, which shifts prey availability. It is entirely possible that these orcas are targeting new prey in new areas because their traditional food sources are under severe pressure.
That makes a lot of sense.
It serves as a stark reminder that the ocean is not a static environment. It is a dynamic, constantly adapting system. The rigid hierarchy we assumed existed with a solitary shark sitting comfortably at the very top is a vast oversimplification.
It really is. So to bring all of our sources together today, the great white shark, which is a perfect killing machine, refined over millions of years of evolution, is being systematically outmaneuvered by the killer whale.
It proves that in the wild, advanced cognition, social learning, and coordinated teamwork will ultimately conquer brute strength and solitary instinct.
Orcas are performing highly specialized biological extractions, explicitly teaching the methods to their young and passing that culture across oceans.
This raises an important question and perhaps a chilling thought to end on.
Lay it on us.
We now possess concrete proof that orcas can socially transmit highly complex specialized hunting techniques, like the surgical extraction of a liver across entirely different pods and different oceans.
Right.
As climate change continues to disrupt marine food webs, forcing species to migrate and interact in completely unfamiliar territories, what other massive, historically untouchable ocean creatures might these genius predators figure out how to dismantle next?
That is an incredible thought to leave you with. Imagine the strategies they are developing in the deep right now. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the true hierarchy of the ocean. Keep wondering, keep questioning, and we will catch you on the next one.